The results, I thought 90 days, how long? It flew by. It worked better than I could have imagined. And again, my trouble areas, which were the butt of my thighs, fit better in my clothes. They look way better. They have just been positioned better. It's just, I can't speak enough about the program and how amazing it was.
Hello there, it is Mike from Muscle for Life and Legion Athletics, and I'm back with another episode of the Muscle for Life podcast. And this time around, I interview Amy, who is 42 years old and who recently completed my 90-day coaching service, and with a pretty cool story to tell, one that many people out there will be able to relate to, because before finding her way to me and my work, Amy had tried many different things to get the body that she really wanted, only to finally find herself stuck in the currently trendy, very low calorie, very low carb, ketogenic style of dieting. And this was pretty dismaying for Amy because she wasn't eating very many calories. She was eating barely any carbs, which means that she wasn't eating a lot of the foods that she wished she could eat. And she was not losing weight, which is what she wanted to do. Her weight was stuck for a while and she was in pretty good shape, but she felt like she should be in much better shape considering how much she was exercising and how restrictive her diet was. And then it got even worse because she started gaining weight. And that's when she said, okay, that's it. I need to find out what's actually going on. I need to find a real solution. And of course, off to Google she went. And I believe she landed on Muscle for Life. She was looking for answers to one thing or another and found her way to an article I wrote, liked it, and then went and signed up for my coaching service. And from there, what happened is in just 90 days, she lost 8 pounds, she lost 4% body fat, she lost 1.5 inches off of her waist, while also adding about 150 pounds to all of her big lifts. And one of the best parts for her was she did it all eating a lot of carbs that she actually likes to eat, which of course was pretty amazing to her. Now, of course, there were some hurdles to overcome. Amy did run into a number of roadblocks along the way that most of us can relate to, like having issues with workout and meal scheduling, having issues with hunger and cravings, dietary temptations to stray, and so on. And in our chat, Amy is going to share what helped her navigate these barriers skillfully and prevent them from getting in her way. So if you like to hear motivating stories about how people have changed their bodies and lives, and if you want to pick up a few tips along the way that may help you in your journey, then this episode is for you.
This is where I would normally plug a sponsor to pay the bills, but I'm not big on promoting stuff that I don't personally use and believe in, so instead I'm just going to quickly tell you about something of mine. Specifically, my 100% natural greens supplement, Genesis. Now, Genesis is a very unique combination of greens, superfoods, adaptogens, herbs, and other phytonutrients that have been proven to increase immunity, heart and circulatory health, energy levels, libido, mood, and more. Genesis is also naturally sweetened in flavors and contains no artificial food dyes, fillers, or other unnecessary junk. And all that is why it has over 200 reviews on Amazon with a 4-star average, and another 150 plus on my website, also with a 4-star average. So if you want to be healthier, feel better, train harder, and increase your immunity and longevity, then you want to head over to www.legionathletics.com and pick up a bottle of Genesis today. And just to show how much I appreciate my podcast peeps, use the coupon code PODCAST at checkout and you will save 10% on your entire order. And lastly, you should also know that I have a very simple 100% money back guarantee that works like this. You either love my stuff or you get your money back, period. You don't have to return the products. You don't have to fill out forms. You don't have to jump through any other hoops or go through any other shenanigans. So you really can't lose here. Head over to www.legionathletics.com now, place your order, and see for yourself why my supplements have thousands of rave reviews all over the internet. And if for whatever reason they're just not for you, contact us and we will give you a full refund on the spot. Alrighty, that is enough shameless plugging for now at least. Let's get to the show.
Hey, Amy, thanks for taking the time to come on the show.
You're welcome. It's been a great program. Happy to do it.
Yeah, I mean, your results are pretty amazing. Actually, you are in super good shape now, and you were in good shape before. It's not that you were in bad shape before, but now you're super fit now.
Absolutely. I think that's what is the most amazing about this program for me. I've always been somebody who works out and thinks that they ate well. You know, it's always those last 10 pounds and that fine tuning of your body to get it into a detailed shape that I was never achieving in the past.
Yeah, so let's start there. So what did the past look like? What kind of exercise and diet regimens had you tried? What worked well? What didn't work well? How was it going?
Sure. So I would say probably for the last 10 years, I have always worked out. I've worked out 6 days a week, and it's gone from running to yoga sculpts, CrossFit, Shred, which is a running / weight program, Orange Theory, which is the running rowing / weight program. But I have been religious.
Is Orange Theory running? I thought it was cycling.
It's running, rowing, and weights.
Oh, interesting. I thought it was primarily cycling.
There, you know what? There is 1 or 2 cycles in there for people who don't like to row.
I see.
But I'm sure there's a cycling, running weights program out there. You want it, you can find it.
Yeah.
And so I have been doing that for the last 10 years. And about 10 years ago, I went through this transformation with weight. I lost about 20 pounds on a super low carb diet. And when I say low, it's almost no carb.
Right. Almost like ketogenic type.
Pretty much. And it was something that happened in 5 weeks. It was super satisfying. But what happened was you get fearful that you're never going to be able to maintain that weight. So I ended up being on this low carb diet for about 10 years and working out.
Oh, wow.
You know, when you're busting your butt in the gym or working out 6 days a week, sweating and you're drenched and you're eating very little and you're not seeing any results in terms of muscle definition or changing those body parts that are super difficult. For me, it was my thighs and my butt. You almost start asking yourself, why am I doing this every morning, waking up at the crack of dawn, if I'm not seeing any different results? And then, when I started to research new programs, before I found you, I started to gain weight. So where I had this low carb and it was working, and it wasn't super satisfying in eating, but I was disciplined and I stuck to it, I started to gain weight back eating like that. And I'm like, something is wrong here. I'm doing something wrong. I shouldn't be eating 1,000, 1,100 calories a day, working out 6 days a week, gaining weight. And it was frustrating. And I thought.
And what do you attribute that to now, knowing what you know and having?
I was under eating. I was eating wrong.
Do you have like any cheat days, or just in working with a lot of people that stick to very restrictive diets, inevitably there would be periods where they would kind of just melt down?
Yeah, sure. I would say my cheat days involved wine, and then you typically happen on the weekend. So what would happen is I would be super great Monday through Friday, and then come Friday and Saturday, I would go off the rails, and then I would spend Monday through Friday trying
undoing the damage.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's a cycle that many people go through. I've seen it many, many times where, I mean, some people, it's exactly what you're talking about, eating at BMR or maybe even below BMR, which is basal metabolic rate for people listening.
Right.
The amount of energy that your body burns if just to stay alive, if you were to sit there and do nothing. So eating very low calorie throughout the week because the weekend is such a disaster.
Yes. And I wasn't even thinking of it in that way. I mean, knowing now what I know that I can adjust for a weekend treat, but I didn't know anything about macros or about calories in, calories out, or TDEE or anything about that. I was just literally looking at the carbs. And so I was probably eating way more fat than I ever needed to be eating.
Sure.
In such like disproportionate amounts. I had just gotten to a point where I was like, this is not rocket science. This is achievable. I see women with these bodies all over the place, and they're not doing anything different than I'm doing. I just know that I have something wrong here.
Yeah. So where'd you go from there? So you're like, okay, there's got to be a better way.
So I reached a point where I had probably gained 7 pounds, right? And I'm short. I'm 5'4", so 7 pounds is a lot. I started doing a Google search, and I said, lose fat, gain muscle. And you were the first website that popped up. So
thanks, Google.
Your Google search is working. So I've had personal trainers in the past. The best thing that I found about your website were the before and afters. That was the proof in the pudding that this works. And what was great for me too is that there were similar women to me, like who work out, who don't have a ton of weight to lose, but are looking to make this definition in certain body parts. And it worked. And their stories were great. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, this is it. It was simple and easy for me. And I knew right away, I'm the type of person that needs the coach, that needs the help. If I read a book, I'll start reading, I'll fall asleep, I will skip pages, I'll try to go right to the good part, which is results, and I won't get all of the information I need. If I'm going to do this, I've never weightlifted in my entire life or bodybuilt. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need help. And if I'm going to learn to eat differently, which is going to be hard for me, I'm going to need somebody's guidance and somebody to talk to.
So that's how you found your way to the coaching program.
That's how I found my way to the coaching program, and I immediately signed up. It was no hesitation. I spend so much money on health and fitness every month. I had memberships at Core Power Yoga, at Orange Theory, at Zen Yoga, at Shred. And I said, take all of that combined and how much money and time I spend in the gym buying random recipes for these ketogenic diets. I said, add all that up, and this is a deal.
Yeah, it makes sense. And how was it on the dietary side of things at first to move away from the super low carb to a more balanced diet? Were you afraid you might just gain a bunch of fat? Because I mean, that's these days. First, it was paleo that kind of started the high fat craze, and paleo, it seems to be a bit on the decline. I'm not sure. Like I'd have to check Google Trends, but keto has definitely, it seems to have kind of passed the baton to keto because now keto is on the rise. And of course, it all revolves around fat gain and fat loss. So the idea is,
Right.
that carbs are the enemy. And so the fewer carbs you eat, the more fat your body's going to burn and the leaner you're going to be. And of course, then vice versa, the more carbs you eat, the fatter you're going to be, and the more you're going to be like a sugar burning type. So were you concerned that you could eat what obviously felt like a lot of carbs? I'm sure that was going to negatively impact your physique.
Absolutely. So about a year prior to starting your program, I saw a personal trainer who ended up being a bust, but he convinced me for a small period of time to do a vegan diet. So I had gone through this cycle where I kind of amped up my carbs because, as you can imagine, on a vegan diet, there's not much else to eat. I experienced poor results, right? And so I was definitely scared to try something new. However, there was a certain level of excitement to eat foods that I have given up. I mean, I have not eaten a piece of bread in 10 years.
that makes me think of was it the Bruno movie where he's like his carbicide, like I haven't eaten a carb since, what he said, I think it was in that movie, right? I haven't eaten a carb since 1995 or whatever.
It's right. So it's a true testament to my discipline, but at the same time, I was super excited because I was like, this is going to change my life in terms of diet. And my husband was so excited because he was so sick of having these requirements for my eating. It was just, it was beyond limits. And so I was fearful. I was fearful of the workout and I was fearful of the diet. But I was like, at this point, what's to lose? I mean, I'm gaining weight. So, why would I not try this after I've seen those transformations and read all of your articles are amazing.
Thanks. So then where to go from there? So you start the program and you're like, well, I'm going to give it a go, might as well. And how did it go? And we might as well just interject here. Where did you start in terms of weight and body composition before you started the coaching program?
So I believe I was at 122 pounds, which was a couple pounds lighter than when I had weighed myself when I found your website. I think I started around 126 pounds when I went looking for your website.
Oh, okay.
But I had started to do things like, because I, between having the interview and filling out the questionnaire and waiting for the program to be made, I had started to read your articles and try to start incorporate some things on my own. So I started at 122 officially. And I believe I was in the 23% body fat.
Okay. So again, you were like a normal fit type of person.
Yeah. With just a little added fat in areas that I didn't want.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so then how did it go? So you start with the diet. How was that transition? And in the workouts, obviously you transitioned away from it sounds like just more cardio than anything else. Like, sounds the majority of your time was spent doing cardio to a lot more resistance training. How was that?
So the first week, my coach was amazing. And we had several discussions about exactly, what I would like to eat. And she created these amazing meal plans, which included the wine.
What were the foods that you brought back? Like what had you not eaten in a while that you were excited to eat again?
Oh my gosh, bread. I mean, the fact that I could have, I think one of my morning meals was the breakfast melt with the eggs and the muffin and the cheese. And I was like, this is fabulous. It's like dessert to me.
Yeah.
So the meals were great. And the program, it started me out great. And because I'm already disciplined and I get up every morning, that getting to the gym was no big deal. And I convinced my husband to do the weight training with me, to get him back in the gym, but because I was fearful that I would need a spot. Mm-hmm. And so we started doing it. And I think the first challenge for me was I was so used to going into these workouts that were typically an hour, and I would come out sweating, drenched, soaking wet. And this was more moving from, chest press to incline. And, it was a little bit more leisurely.
A lot more resting. I mean, you're spending you're probably spending about 2 minutes in between your sets.
Yep. You
have to rest. I know exactly what you're talking about because I've emailed and I guess primarily emailed with a lot of women that went through the exact same experience, coming from that exact super high intensity. You're leaving your workouts exhausted. Not a great way to start your day, actually, right. I think, to going to what they felt like, that they're not even doing anything. They're like, how could this possibly work? I barely even sweat.
That's what I felt. I was like, I don't know how this is going to be. I mean, well, there was two things, right? So what I learned pretty quickly on, so I track everything on my Apple iWatch. So as soon as I start my workout, I put on my workout program and I track my heart rate. And I'm sure it's not scientifically as accurate as wearing a chest monitor, but it gives me an idea. So right away in the first week, what I did see is that I typically burned around the same calories I did in that hour workout where I was sweating to death and exhausted. Yeah. And I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy that I could walk around the gym, rest for 2 to 3 minutes in between sets, still work out an hour and burn the same amount of calories. I was like, I've clearly embarked upon something different and new. And if this ends up working out, which it did, this is a nicer way to work out in the morning.
Yeah. And, I've written about this, and if you get very scientific about it, you were probably burning more calories previously, but it's not as much as many people think. So maybe you were burning 20% more with the super high intensity, but in terms of the perceived effort, I mean, of course, your previous workouts probably felt 2 or 3 times harder, but you were definitely not burning 2 or 3 times as many calories. So it can be very counterintuitive. And then there's also something to be said for, with your resistance training workouts in particular, you're not there to burn calories. Like, sure, you're going to burn calories, but now you understand that's not why you're doing them. You're doing them to train your muscles, and you want to be doing that as effectively as possible. And rest is very important because that's when your body and your muscles recoup their energy and strength, so you can give maximum effort on each set, and so you can progress as well as possible over time. That's what you want to be achieving in your resistance training workouts. Now, if you were doing some cardio on top of that, then those are the workouts where in the grand scheme of things, you're pretty much just doing cardio to burn calories. Sure, there are some additional health benefits, but for those of us that are into weightlifting, if we're doing cardio, it's usually because we're cutting, or we just want to bump up our energy expenditure so we can eat a bit more food.
Right. And I did cardio 2 to 3 days a week. I did 3 sessions of HIIT, 30 minutes each. And again, a welcome change compared to the high intensity I was doing 6 days a week.
Yeah, and my wife does those high intensity classes sometimes at the local Equinox around here, and those are difficult classes. It's 60 or 70 minutes of HIIT, basically. Yep. Is what it is. It's actually ridiculous. She tries to get me to go to it. I'm like, nah. I don't need to do 60 minutes of HIIT on top of everything else. Sorry.
Right. And and what I found too, which is a welcome benefit for me, I'm 43, and as I get older, you have the creaks and the cracks and the joints. And when I was doing the high intensity workouts that I was doing before, my shoulder always hurt, my neck always hurt, my calves and things like that from the jumping around and the Ajax and the jumping jacks. And all those issues are gone.
That's great.
All gone because I'm not putting that kind of strain on my body. I'm working out in a controlled way, and I'm slowly, gradually overloading week by week in a way that doesn't cause injury. I'm not moving so quickly. In those high intensity, you move out of sequence in the wrong way, you trip over your foot, something could happen. It's sometimes a recipe for injury.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, CrossFit is similar in that way where if it's programmed well, sure. I mean, it can be reasonable in terms of a form of exercise, but it usually comes with a higher risk of injury just by its very nature, by what you're doing. If you're doing high intensity Olympic lifts, you're just at a higher risk of injury, even if you're actually good at it.
Right.
So when you were going through the process, which was, for people listening, it's a 90-day coaching, like a transformation program that we have, and that's what Amy was doing. Were there any obstacles along the way or hurdles that you had to clear? Any kind of curveballs that you had to deal with?
Absolutely. So a couple things. The weight in the beginning was about 1 pound per week, right? So it was a little slower than I was used to when I had that ketogenic diet experience. And
just to make it clear for people listening, the reason why if you go from a normal diet to a ketogenic diet, you can lose weight quickly is simply because you're dropping your carbs down to obviously almost nothing, which flushes a lot of water and glycogen out of the body. So you can achieve that rapid weight loss, but don't mistake that for rapid fat loss. Research has shown, even in the case of ketogenic dieting, when you play it out over time, so long as you control for protein and calories, so as long as if you take two groups of people and you have them eat the same amount of protein and the same amount of calories every day, and both are in an energy deficit, an equal energy deficit, ketogenic dieting does not result in more fat loss. Then you may lose more weight over the short term, let's say over the first 4 weeks. But even if you play that out over time, play that over 10, 12 plus weeks, even the weight gain normalizes between the two diets. So that's why it can be satisfying to switch to a ketogenic diet and see 4 pounds come off in the first week. However, you just need to know that's not 4 pounds of fat, unfortunately. When you manipulate your carbs, once you bring them back in, you quickly can regain weight. So that can be very disconcerting to people, and they don't realize that it's not fat that is coming off and coming back. It's just water and glycogen, which is a form of carbohydrate stored in your muscles and liver. So anyways, I just wanted to interject that for people listening, maybe wondering why was keto so great for just losing weight fast?
Right. And so having the coach was super helpful on that, because answering those questions and giving me those answers, just like you gave, helped me to believe that the weight that I was losing was permanent weight, right? It wasn't a quick fix. I was learning to lose this weight in a way that, again, with the fat. So some of the biggest reductions I saw initially were in the body fat percentage. That started to drop. And week by week, I would lose 1 pound or maybe 2, and the percentage of fat would drop. And we would get to some plateaus. I think, I consistently lost 1 pound for the first 4 weeks. I would get into the 118 range, and then I would stall for a minute, and via the coaching, she would say, just stick with it, or she would make some modifications in the diet. And so we tried a few different things. And so in the diet, particularly, I learned a lot. I learned way more than I've ever known about macros and eating to those macros. But some of the things like reverse dieting or a refeed day or dropping another 100 calories to see if that does anything to the weight, or would you rather add another cardio session? It was all of these modifications that she brought to the table that helped me figure out from my body type and what I was looking to achieve, how to play with those numbers and how to find something that was satisfying. But I've never along the way did I ever sacrifice what I was eating or how I was eating, because I still got way more carbs than I'd ever eaten in the past. I got a great amount of protein. I got a certain amount of fat, and I got a certain amount of foods that I like to eat that I didn't have to give up.
What was the difference for you between the ketogenic diet and just a more straightforward, just balanced diet? I'm sure you noticed differences both inside and outside of the gym, right?
Absolutely. So in a ketogenic diet, I was always hungry. And I think one of the claims to the ketogenic diet is that your body will reach this energy level where you won't feel hungry ever. And that wasn't the case for me. I always felt starving.
And was that the case even at different caloric intakes? I mean, because if you bring your calories down too low, even if you eat 100% carbs or let's say it was like 45, 10, 45% protein, 45% carb, 10% fat. So about as many calories as you can toward protein carbs. Still, there's a point where if your calories go too low, you are going to be hungry. But did you find that to be the case with the keto diet, even when your calories were a bit higher, when they weren't necessarily 1,000 or 1,100?
Well, I think this is the flaw of the ketogenic diet, right? They don't teach you about the macros. So I never knew what my calorie intake should be. And so that was the biggest learning lesson for me, was to establish your TDEE, your total baseline. And then if you want to cut, we're going to have to take it down to here. Or if you want to maintain, you reverse diet slowly until you get to a point where you can see your body maintaining this weight over time and not gaining. And then if you want to bulk, you do this. And so I started to learn about things and components of eating properly that I'd never known, in a way that let me believe that I'm not giving up anything anymore. I'm not giving up anything that I don't like to eat. I just know that I have to make accommodations if I want to have certain things in my diet. And that's where the ketogenic diet fails, right? They talk about low carb only, but they don't teach you about anything else. And so who knows how much calories I were eating, but I can certainly guarantee you that it was very low, probably far too low. And that's why I experienced this lack of energy and this tiredness all the time.
How did that compare to the more balanced approach?
So I did fasted workouts probably up until about maybe 3 weeks ago, and it was fine. It was great. I was lifting weights. I had good energy. I was doing my cardio. I get up at 3:50 in the morning. I'm at the gym at 5. I'm out of the gym by 7 on days where I don't do cardio, 7:15, 7:30 on days where I do cardio. And then I work crazy hours. And so the diet was great. It gave me way more to eat. It was way more satisfying, way more carbs, which I think has helped my weightlifting because, without carbs, I just didn't have the energy before to, even in my past workouts, before I started Muscle for Life, I had never weightlifted anything higher than like a 10-pound weight. It was crazy, but I probably could, right? But I just didn't. And I never had the desire or intensity to do it.
Yeah.
So I started your program. And then certainly with the weightlifting, the challenges in the beginning, we started out at a level where we were just testing, what was I comfortable lifting? And then the way the weight was added gradually over time was at a pace and a level that worked super well for me until I got to the end of the program and I started lifting higher weights. And I kind of reached this plateau. I think I sat at the chest press, at 70 pounds for weeks, and I just couldn't push beyond it. And that's when, again, the coach came in with some tools and she said, you could do several things. She's like, it might be time for a deload week. She's like, it might be time for you to start reverse dieting and eating a bit more so that you have these calories that you can push yourself. Or it might be time to not do the fasted workouts in the morning, but eat before your workouts.
Yeah.
And so, again, just all of these tools to start to experiment and play with and see what works well for you. So right now I've been eating before my workouts, and now I'm up to 75 in the chest press. And so I'm pushing beyond those limits, and it's working. And
yeah, I mean, your numbers are impressive now. What I have here is when you say chest press, I have flat bench here. Is this like the barbell bench press?
Yes.
Yeah. So on the bench press, so your numbers have obviously gone up a little bit since what I'm looking at, but 65 for 10, squat 125 for 8, deadlift 105 for 8, military press 55 for 8. Mm-hmm. Those are great numbers, especially considering I have here where you started. Your deadlift has gone up from 60 to 105, your squat from 85 to 125 in just 3 months. That's impressive. Also considering that you were cutting, which right. As you know, and as most people listening know, or at least probably knows, cutting just impairs your muscle and strength gain. And yeah, if you're new to proper weightlifting or just weightlifting in general, your body's so hyper responsive, it just kind of overrides that, and you can still gain muscle and strength in a deficit. But even then, it's harder, and you don't gain as much in a deficit as you would in a surplus. So you've made really good progress considering that you have been in a deficit, and even comparing to what you were doing previously with keto. You were in a deficit. Maybe you're in a bit too big of a deficit, but you still went from a deficit to a deficit. It's not like you went from a deficit to a large surplus with carbs, and so that'd be a very different comparison. You went from a large deficit to a moderate deficit, but just changed the macronutrient balance of your diet. And as you know, it can just make a very big difference inside and outside of the gym. Did you notice when you were doing keto? Did it affect your mood and just your general energy levels outside of the gym?
Absolutely. Nobody wants to be starving or be eating foods that they haven't eaten in 10 years for a very long time. It's never like you're constantly watching it, constantly thinking about it, constantly making sure it fits in with your daily routine and your diet. And it does. It affects your moods. I would say that most of the time, like during the work week, because I do go to bed at a decent hour and things like that, it wasn't. But on the weekends, I just wasn't as active as I probably could have been. Whereas this diet has been a breeze. It has been easy to follow. I love it. I welcome it. And I certainly appreciate all of the knowledge that I have and the ability to play with it in a way that I could never understand before.
That's great. And in terms of bottom line results, just for you listening, so the numbers I have here, and I'm curious now where you have gone from this point and what you're doing now. But so you started around 122, 23-ish% body fat, and then 3 months later, 114, about 19% body fat, and again, increased your whole body strength a lot. I can't do the math off the top of my head, but I'd say it looks like maybe on average 30 or 40% across the board, which is pretty impressive.
Right. I've lost another pound since then, which is odd because I did a deload week and I've been reverse dieting. And
yeah, that's pretty common actually, because you got to think about when you're reverse dieting, again, the reason, I know this is kind of a controversial topic these days, but I don't think it should be. It's just made to be more controversial than it really should be. The idea with reverse dieting is, yeah, you could just jump your calories up to what you think is your TDE, but your current TDE is going to be lower than when you started dieting because you weigh less. Simply by that alone, right, it's going to be lower. There are also a couple physiological factors in play that make your body more inclined to want to gain some fat back when you are in a deficit for a while. And of course, you can only do that with a surplus. But the idea of reverse dieting is just to jump your calories up in a stepwise fashion so you can just make sure that you don't go to eating way too much, which can happen also, maybe not with you because you have had such good discipline, obviously, with your diet, with everything for a long time. But, a lot of people that maybe normally aren't so disciplined and they stick it through that diet and now, they go, I'm just going to jump my calories up an extra 600 calories a day because my TDE, in many cases, they misestimate what their TDE even is. They overestimate. Right. And then now that they've added all this food back in, I don't quite know why. I haven't really looked into it in terms of the research. I've experienced it myself. I don't know if you've experienced this, but when you start eating more again, that's the only time when I actually notice that I feel hungry. When I'm cutting, I don't get hungry. I don't even feel it. But when I start going back toward maintenance, or if I'm going toward even a surplus, that's actually when my body, I don't know, it's like finally it's getting more food and it's into it. It's like, give me more food. That's when I'll feel hungry. So I've seen it working with people where they start to experience more hunger when they're increasing their calories. So they jump their calories up and they're more hungry than they were when they were cutting. And then that leads to, you have the weekend phenomenon. Well, yeah. So anyways, the idea with reverse dieting is just to control that increase. So you just over the course of a few weeks, you bring your calories back up to your new TDE, as opposed to jumping them straight back to what you hope your TDE is, and then hoping that you don't overshoot it and you don't start eating even more than that because it just gets out of control.
Right. And I think one of the biggest problems with a lot of weight management diet programs or the ketogenic diet or the paleo is that there's no maintenance, right? There's no real direction for maintenance. So
it's mainly about weight loss, right? Because that's the big button, of course.
Yeah. So they've got you to where you wanted to be, perhaps, in this rapid result. But then what do you do from there? And so a lot of people, what they end up doing is continuing on this road like I did, dieting forever. Whereas this, like an extra 100 calories per week, in this reverse diet mode is like, this is awesome. And then when it doesn't move the needle, it's even more awesome.
Or like in your case, when your weight, goes down because you're still in a deficit for the first few weeks, even though it gets smaller. And then also generally, right, being in a deficit is stressful to the body. So usually, especially after you've been dieting for a little bit, your cortisol levels are just chronically higher, which means that your water retention is chronically higher. And once you start giving your body more food, your cortisol levels come down, your water comes down. And so you can see weight loss for that reason as well. And you also then you can notice it in the mirror because a lot of the water that you'll be flushing out is subcutaneous. So you'll just look leaner. It can be overnight.
Right. And so I've just noticed that, again, I like, I'm doing the reverse dieting now. I'm trying to find a maintenance. And I know that I'm getting to a point in my weightlifting again where I'm at a challenging weight for squats. I'm at a challenging weight for bench pressing and for biceps. And so I know that perhaps I'm thinking maybe in the fall, I will go through a bulk cycle and I will increase my weight a little bit. And then try to come out of it for a cut in the spring to get ready for the bathing suits.
That's great. So from now until then, it's going to be summer maintenance mode. You just want to stay because now you're super lean and you're where you want to be. So you can just hang out there for the summer.
Yep. I mean, it's just, again, the results, I thought 90 days, how long? It flew by. It worked better than I could have imagined. And again, my trouble areas, which were the butt of my thighs, fit better in my clothes. They look way better. They have just been positioned better. It's just, I can't speak enough about the program and how amazing it was for me.
That's great. How's that experience been? Have other people, I'm sure they've noticed and asked, what are you doing? And then were they surprised to hear or to even see you wait a minute, you're eating bread and what's going on?
Absolutely. So I have a colleague who I work with, and we used to work out religiously together and run races together. And, she's like, I need this program. And my sister, who is a spin instructor and a personal trainer, she even said, this is the biggest transformation I've ever seen you do. I've seen you lose weight, but I've never seen you change your body in this way. And I think that's the component. Everybody always says you can't change one certain body part, that you can't train your glutes until they become into this perfected mode, but you can change it. It might take a long time for it to get there, but you can change it. I've seen people do it. I see women with great legs. I was like, I can have those legs if they can have those legs. So that's what I've seen the biggest change for me, is that your program actually sticks to that, and it worked for that. And again, my sister was a personal trainer. I was like, I don't know what you're doing with your clients, but it can't be as good as this, because I don't see your clients or people who are in the gym, in the weight room, who are working out differently, getting any different results. In the last 90 days, I've watched several women who have been in there for the last 90 days, and they haven't changed one bit. And in those 90 days, I lost all that weight and changed my body significantly. It's simple, it's programmed, and it gave me the power to do something that I've never been able to do with my body. Now I just look at everybody in the gym, I'm like, you guys should get on board. Do you have any idea? And people do come up to me, they're like, what are you doing? And I tell them, and they just can't believe that weightlifting was the answer.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I totally understand. I've had that conversation many times myself, and online and offline. So it's cool to hear, though, just because there's the vanity of it, right? There's the aesthetics or whatever, but there's also the long-term health component, and maintaining a high amount of lean mass is also incredibly important for long-term health. And I mean, there's a growing body of research that shows that the total amount of lean mass that you have is predictive basically of all-cause mortality, meaning so the more muscle you have, the less likely you are to die from anything and everything. Basically, just the stronger and more resilient your body is, which of course is kind of commonsensical when you say it like that. But at this point, it's also kind of, I'd say the weight of the evidence is clear, where you can safely say that is probably a very accurate statement. And so there's also that is, you keep this habit up, and future you in 20 or 30 years, future you is going to be very thankful for what you're doing right now, because you're just not going to have the problems that plague many people in their 60s and 70s and beyond. I mean, there's no reason why. I remember seeing on Facebook, I don't know, weeks ago, it was, how old was it? This guy was, I want to say, and I've seen women as well, I want to say in his 80s, and he was still competing in powerlifting competitions. And you can do that. He was in extremely good shape for an 80-year-old, and didn't look all drugged up either. Actually looked like he had done a good job maintaining his body composition over the years. And so that dude is never going to fall down and break his hip. It's just not going to happen.
Right. And I think about that because I had my son late in my 30s, and so he is 6 now, and I'm 43. And so I think I take that seriously. I want to be around when he's 43. And I want to be active. And, my mother, who's 67, if she did fall, she would break a hip, and she's never worked out a day in her life. And I don't ever want to be in a position where I age that drastically, that quickly over time. I see certainly more men in the gym, more older men who are in their 70s, and I would never guess it, because they are in great shape and they've just taken care of themselves. And it's super important.
Totally agree. That's one of my next books is going to be specifically for mid-30s and beyond. And many people don't know, actually, that in guys in particular, the muscle loss begins somewhere in the mid-20s is where it actually, if you don't do anything to preserve muscle, you actually start losing muscle in your mid-20s, and the testosterone decline begins around there. I think it's more skewed toward like the early 30s, but those are not just inevitabilities of aging. It can be completely prevented if you do a good job. And the same principles apply to women. The hormonal changes are different, of course, and the rate at which muscle is lost is a bit different. But the principles are the same in that you don't have to. Our biological age increases, but we don't have to get old. That is an option. The days passing is not an option, but we don't have to become decrepit and what we would consider old,
Right. It's just, it's so funny that you would think the medical world will tie into that. I remember when I had my son, I ended up having a C-section. And after you have the baby, you're in the doctor's office the same amount of time getting all your checkups. But one of the doctors had said to me, don't be surprised if you never have a strong core because of this. And now look at my abs. Like, that was ridiculous. How could he make a comment like that? And now I see my abs. I'm like, what do you mean? But if women are hearing this and that's the message being put out, then they're even reluctant to probably try to get that core or those kinds of definition in their abs. It's just funny. You would think the medical world would want to get on board and push their clients and their patients to be more healthy and have this longevity in life.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there is a growing movement in that direction for sure. It's just in school, MDs don't learn very much about nutrition. I mean, the amount of time that's spent on nutrition, let alone exercise, I don't think there's anything on exercise, but nutrition, I forget the number, but it's astonishingly low.
Wow.
It's on them to educate themselves out of school and educate themselves in something that was completely neglected in school, which you could obviously by extension assume, it must not be that important. But
right.
Obviously there is now, I mean, just health and fitness in general is very much on the rise year over year. It has a seasonality to it, but every year, so obviously Q1 is the biggest. For anything related to health and fitness, there's the most interest in Q1.
Yeah.
And if you just head over to Google Trends, you can see this. I think their data goes back to like 2004. If you look at anything related to health and fitness, it pretty much follows that same trend of, Q1's the biggest, Q2 is the second biggest, Q3 is the third, and then Q4 it just tanks. But every year, Q1 just gets bigger and bigger. The entire trend is just in a higher range. And so you have a lot of doctors that are coming around on this and wanting to address the preventative side of things. And then there's also, obviously, there's the huge amount of cost associated with being unhealthy, and that's not a burden just to individuals, it's a burden to all of us, like through healthcare costs. And
absolutely.
Which ultimately just comes down to more and more taxes, and the government says they just want to do more and more for everybody, which means they just want to take more and more from everybody to do things poorly. That's the government way. Anyways, I totally agree that the state right now is not that great, but 10, 15 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised if we've turned a corner, at least in that regard, where people are getting a lot more good advice from their doctors in terms of preventing health problems just through diet, lifestyle.
Absolutely. That would be great. Yeah.
It's moving in that direction. Okay, well, that's actually everything that I had, all my questions for you. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share? Or
again, the program was fabulous for me, from the diet to the workout to the coaching. And if anyone listening is on the fence on the coaching, I would say the accountability and the tailored workouts and meal plans done for you was fantastic. It took the guesswork out of something in the beginning while you were learning to do this yourself. But overall, the program was remarkable for me, and I got exactly what I wanted.
Super glad to hear that. Thank you. And thanks again for taking your time, AD. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
Keep up the good work. Keep me posted on how your bulk goes. That'll be your that'll be your first proper, I guess we could say, lean bulk, right? I mean, I like to say that just to distinguish in people's minds.
Right.
Because that really is the approach. We're talking about a slight surplus, a controlled surplus, not just, eat anything and everything and gain weight at any and all costs. That's counterproductive.
I will let you know, because that I'm fearful of it, but I know that
you're gonna like it. You're gonna like is, one, your workouts are gonna be the best workouts you've ever had. You're gonna have a lot of energy. You're gonna progress rapidly, and you just feel better eating more calories, period,
Right.
in general. And then sure, it's the fat gain that you get kind of annoyed with in the beginning, where that's the curse of being lean, right? So take where you're at right now and take, let's say in the future, let's say you even get leaner, whatever. The leanest you have ever been becomes your new, acceptable. And anything fatter than that is unacceptable. So that's the only psychological wrinkle, but that's just a matter of getting over it, being whatever, being aware that it's nice to, we all are, for whatever reason, we are wired the same way, that when we look in the mirror and we're very lean, we just really like what we see for whatever reason.
So true.
It's just the way it is. So you lose a bit of the vanity appeal, the aesthetic appeal, but you gain in better workouts, better mood, better energy. You'll probably sleep better. Everything is basically, everything else is basically better. And then you also know now losing fat is very easy to do. It's completely straightforward, and it never changes. It's not of course not in a year, but it's not even in 20 years from now, you'll still be able to do the exact same thing. It's not like your metabolism fundamentally shifts in any way. And especially if you continue doing what you're doing, your energy expenditure is not going to change. Nothing is going to change for the worse. So that's where you can also be just whatever. Maybe you're not going to like being at a higher body fat percentage, but or at least you're not going to like how it looks. But you're not.
But it's
you're not going to care either, because you're well, I know why I'm doing this, and it's a small sacrifice.
Right. Agreed. And so I'm sure I'll be fearful when I start. I'll probably enjoy it while I'm doing it, and then I'll probably be ready for my cut.
Yep, that's how it goes. Toward the end, you just get sick of eating food too. So you're welcome. You'll welcome the cut. You're gonna be happy to not, because usually, and I'm guessing just because of your body type, you're gonna find that you'll move up into a surplus that'll serve you. It's similar to cutting. That'll serve you for a bit, and then you're gonna have to increase your food a bit, and that's you're not gonna gain any more fat. That's just to keep the weight gain moving. So let's say that if you're a normal responder, you're probably going to gain equal parts fat and muscle as you gain weight. If you're a very high responder, you might gain a bit more muscle than fat. But, just to keep that moving, you're probably going to have to raise your calories. And if you are going to do it properly, you're going to go for at least 3 months. Ideally, you'd be able to stretch out a little bit longer. So by the end of that time, when you're cutting, it's obviously mild starvation. That's what you're doing. You're mildly starving your body. And, you feel it to some degree. And when you're bulking, it's mild overfeeding. Your body doesn't want either one. Your body just wants to maintain its current state. So, that's what it tries to do through hormones and other factors relating to your appetite. It tries to just maintain where you're at. And so it's funny. It's just a funny experience you'll see because it'll be your first time. The idea of I get to eat all this extra food. It sounds good until a couple months in where you're oh, I can't. You're just finishing your meals. You're I just got to get this down. Your last meal of the day. It takes that. It's going to take willpower just to eat your final meal. So it's funny in that way.
Even when I first started eating this meal program, and again, like I said, I hadn't eaten bread or rice in forever. The first time we made dinner, the pile of chicken, and then the pile of rice, and then the pile of veggies. My husband was this is like a hungry man dinner. He was I know.
That's funny.
I can only imagine in a bowl with that.
Yeah, so those are going to be more. You're going to have more hungry man meals. That's how it goes.
Yeah, so it was great. I thank you for your website and all your knowledge and information, and I love the articles. It's a wealth of knowledge that I can always go and find whatever I'm looking for.
And if you, dear listener, want to learn more about my coaching service and how we might be able to help you reach your health and fitness goals faster, just head over to muscleforlife.com/coaching, muscleforlife.com/coaching, and you can learn all about it and schedule a free consultation call where my director of coaching, Matthew, will get on the phone with you and talk about where you've been, where you want to go, and how we might be able to help you get there faster and more enjoyably, which counts for something. Again, muscleforlife.com/coaching. Check it out. Hey there, it's Mike again. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it interesting and helpful. And if you did and don't mind doing me a favor, then please do give this video a like and leave a comment down below.
Not only do I like to hear from everybody and I jump in and reply to as many comments as I can, it also helps other people find their way to the show and learn how to build their best bodies ever too. And of course, if you want to be notified when the next episode goes live, then just subscribe to my channel and you won't miss out on any of the new content. Lastly, if you didn't like something about the show, then definitely shoot me an email at mike@muscleforlife.com and share your thoughts on how you think it could be better. I read everything myself, and I'm always looking for constructive feedback, so please do reach out. Thanks again for listening to the episode, and I hope to hear from you soon. And lastly, this episode is brought to you by me. Seriously though, I'm not big on promoting stuff that I don't personally use and believe in, so instead I'm going to just quickly tell you about something of mine. Specifically, my 100% natural greens supplement, Genesis. Now, Genesis is a very unique combination of greens, superfoods, adaptogens, herbs, and other phytonutrients that have been proven to increase immunity, heart and circulatory health, energy levels, libido, mood, and more. Genesis is also naturally sweetened in flavors and contains no artificial food dyes, fillers, or other unnecessary junk. And all that is why it has over 200 reviews on Amazon with a 4-star average, and another 150 plus on my website, also with a 4-star average. So if you want to be healthier, feel better, train harder, and increase your immunity and longevity, then you want to head over to www.legionathletics.com and pick up a bottle of Genesis today. And just to show how much I appreciate my podcast peeps, use the coupon code PODCAST at checkout and you will save 10% on your entire order. And lastly, you should also know that I have a very simple 100% money back guarantee that works like this. You either love my stuff or you get your money back, period. You don't have to return the products. You don't have to fill out forms. You don't have to jump through any other hoops or go through any other shenanigans. So you really can't lose here. Head over to www.legionathletics.com now, place your order, and see for yourself why my supplements have thousands of rave reviews all over the internet. And if for whatever reason they're just not for you, contact us and we will give you a full refund on the spot.